Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Vodcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host today from MegaJeff's Rock Hard Vinyl, Jeff McCormack. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And my other co-host from Follow the Light Music Review, Mr. John DeLaurentis. Welcome, John.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, John. And so, friends, I want to make mention really quick. My normal host, Rex, he is celebrating his anniversary with his lovely wife, Jody, today. And he gave us his blessing for this episode, but we want to wish Rex and Jody a happy anniversary, today being October the 18th. Happy anniversary, Rex and Jody. Yay! So, friends, without further ado, in 1983, our next guest artist, he captured the attention of revered music producer and artist Terry Scott Taylor. Along with his band Scaterd Few, he's released 5 albums infusing punk rock music with lyrical passages exploring human behavior and the Judeo-Christian worldview. With his subsequent band Spyglass Blue, he gave us 4 albums of post-punk, which ensued with a tip of the hat toward goth, and recently his solo album Auditory. It's been released in CD and digital formats, and we'll explore that. And today we welcome the avant-garde Allan Aguirre. Welcome, Allan. It's an honor to have you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Allan,
You forgot about Ministries Walking.
say what? I'm sorry?
You forgot about my band Ministries Walking.
I'm sorry, and I could
Oh,
have
that's all right.
mentioned Signet too, right?
What's that?
I could have mentioned Signet too, I think.
Well, Signia, yeah, that was a long time ago.
So, he's a man of many talents, and we're going to get into it. We're going to explore. He's also an author, and we're going to get into Allan's books as well. But Allan, if I may, I'd like to start out to those who might not have had a chance to check it out yet. Your current music endeavor is Auditory, and it was released, I believe, for streaming in August and in CD in September. And there it is right there. Look at that. Good looking.
Man, I'm excited about this puppy.
Good looking cover, and it kind of has a stamp look to it, and you look very distinguished.
Yeah, like an old school, old timey passport looking thing.
Passport. There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it does have a stamp like on it, I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Allan, really quick, where can fans pick up the physical copy at?
Geez,
link.
what's the link? They can go to, well, I have a, how do you get to that store?
Friends,
You can go to FG Rec. So here's the URL: FGRECCO.com. Stands for Faceless Gen Recording Company. FGRecco.com. Click on Auditory, and there'll be a link there for the physical and the digital.
and friends, there is a plethora of links for the many works that Allan has done and been in, the bands and stuff. All of those links, friends, will be posted in our description below. So please go to the description below and check out those links. And so, Allan, what can fans of the funky punky Scaterd Few and the moody alt rock of Spyglass Blue expect from Auditory?
So I think there's a little bit of everything there. So like Suboptimal is the hardest song on this 8-song album, so that's going to give you your heavy stuff. I think Fade to White right after that, but then the rest is going to be pretty much kind of like Spyglass Blue, Ministries Walking type of thing. A little bit more melodic, a little bit more post-punk, which is what the young kids call goth.
Yeah.
The ones that shop for those big, huge, baggy pants that have nothing to do with post-punk. Hot Topic, yeah, here I go. Okay, I can trigger myself. You forgot that you're supposed to wear pants this wide, not that wide. Anyway, so it really does have a little bit of everything that I've ever done stylistically, and it's definitely me. So yeah.
So I'm curious.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Well, I'm curious. Allan, you said most definitely me. This is under your given, under Allan Aguirre and not
I've
a
never
band
done
moniker.
that before.
Say what?
I've never done that before.
Exactly. And so I'm curious, what was there any specific reason that you opted to to release it
Yeah.
under your name?
So, one, I haven't made a new record in like 15 years. This is like the first one in 15 years. So I've never gone that long in my entire life. I mean, I was working when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. So, this is literally the longest hiatus I've ever taken. But I've been writing books, so I've still been busy in creating. I got this new studio. I haven't put out a new record in a long time. So I'm like, let's just see what happens. And I wanted to approach it without it. First of all, a new Scattered Few will never happen because we killed that. I killed that on purpose. But I do want to do a new Spyglass. I do want to do a new Ministries Walking. And I definitely want to do an ambient worship album because all this ambient worship stuff has come out in the last 5 years or so. I think we can blame my good friend Gabriel Wilson from Rock and Roll Worship Circus, who put out an amazing Without Words worship album for Bethel Music a few years back, and it's all instrumental. And that, I think, what caused or what provoked that happening in Christian music. But I noticed about 3 or 4 years ago something very familiar about a lot of this ambient stuff that's coming out. Because while I'm writing a book, I can't listen to music with words. So I had to find a lot of instrumental stuff. And, there's some soundtrack stuff I can listen to. But since I do write about theology and doctrine and apologetics, I was, having instrumental worship music is really perfect for me. And I started hearing a familiarity to it. And then I realized what it was. Some of these people are trying to rip off David Bowie's Low, which is considered probably one of the first ambient records right after Kraftwerk, but maybe more above ground than Kraftwerk. So if you listen to the B-sides of Low and Heroes, there's your ambient music that everyone, that's where it started for the most part, right? Besides Kraftwerk like the year before. And I started hearing people trying to, they're copying little lines or riffs, because you got to remember that's been embedded in my psyche since I was 13, since Low came out when I was 13. So I'm like, well, that's what's going on. So I do want to do an ambient worship album. So I thought I'm not going to do a spy right now. I'm going to do a Ministries Walking eventually, probably next. And I'm not ready to do an ambient one yet. So let's just see what happens, and I'll do it under my own name. And I've never done that before. But here's what I did find. I found it was liberating. There was a liberating part of the process for me because I wasn't pigeonholed into a genre. Because Spyglass Blue is a specific genre. Scattered Few is a specific genre. So I was able to do whatever I wanted, and I did things on here. I think they're subtle that I've never done before because of that. So I found that to be quite exhilarating. The fact that I had no genre trappings. To answer your question long-windedly.
No, that's great. That's great. And then, so the title, Auditory, and of course that's of or relating to hearing. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, Allan. I know that seems like the logical choice, because it is of or relating to hearing. But what led you to that title, and were there any other considerations, maybe?
There really wasn't any consideration. I thought Auditory would be cool since it's like a basic. So it's step one to the process, to music or whatever, auditory, hearing, listening. Mm-hmm. So, and since I was kind of going back to basics, I had a new studio. I just updated my studio. So I had a whole bunch of a huge learning curve in the studio. And I haven't done this in a long time. I don't even know if anyone's going to give a rip that I did it. Because, who knows what they're up to these days. And so I went with that. There used to be I'm from Southern California, as most people know. There was a record store in the 70s that I used to frequent. It was one of those record store head shops in the 70s. I mean, that's how they worked. And it was called Auditory Odyssey. And if you're from Southern California, that area, you'll remember. And so I think, I think remembering that and just going, I'm going to go with Auditory, and it means what it means, You can't go with Audible.
Sure. Well, you mentioned suboptimal, and
yeah.
I noted the video on YouTube. There's the music of youth ensconced in a punk style. They seem to be, having a great
Mhm.
time in a club, and then it's followed by this long pause of lower frequency, and here comes your avant-garde artistry in the mix. There's these lower frequency tones that it fades into, and it's depicted on the screen like with a bulldozer operating in a dump. Now,
Yeah,
Alan, the artist, is always saying something. And you,
absolutely.
kind sir, are an avant-garde artist. And so here is my question.
What
Do
the
you
hell are you saying?
wish for the listener and viewer to understand the illusion? Or what, as the artist, can you divulge what you were wishing
Yeah.
to say during that?
So the title itself means, you know, you're suboptimal. There's something lacking,
Mhm.
and then lyrically, I'm talking about a certain demographic that's has surfaced in the last 5 years that I think is lacking in some major critical thinking skills. Um, they're very superficial. I find it ridiculous, you know. I mean, I'm an old punk rocker, you know, and most people don't remember or don't understand because they weren't punk rockers. I mean, there's a lot of people that'll say they are, or they were, like Bono, but he's incriminating himself because there's tons of video footage of him saying we're not a punk rock band from way back when, which is why one of the reasons why people loved them, you know. But anyway, punk rock was a socio-political movement. So I've always been socio-political, and I see that in Christendom, always have. I mean, the Gospels, Jesus is a socio-political figure. What he's saying. No, he wasn't a socialist. No, he wasn't an anarchist. No, he wasn't any of that goofy things people want to attribute to him. Oh, he was the first punk rocker. No, he wasn't, because he wasn't rebellious. He wasn't an anarchist, right? So it's a social political commentary, suboptimal, the title itself is, on a demographic that's been around for like maybe the last 5 years max. They've always been there, but this is like beyond because at least, I mean, if you look at, if you can't even attribute it to punk rock, because at least the punk rockers had some sort of they had there was a tangible reason for why they were doing what they were doing, you know, being socially political. These guys don't. I mean, they even call themselves stuff that they're actually against, or they're, I mean, they think they're against it, but they're actually, that's who they are. So lyrically, that's the topic. And so my daughter helped generated some, you know, punk rock AI imagery. That's because that's all, you know, that's what that is. And then the middle part, and I've done that before, where I've just thrown a out of place soundscape in the middle. I mean, we did that. I've done that before, and it just felt like this would be a good place to do that, and so I did. And I always have to add. One of my pleasures is finding a place to put seagulls into my music, and I've done that multiple times. And this was the place for that as well. And so, audio wise, right? You got your goofy break that doesn't make any sense, but that's, oh, are we underwater? Are those depth charges? What's going on? You know, because, and then oh, this is a perfect place for my seagulls. And I had footage of my son and I when we went to a dump here in Salt Lake, and so first of all, there's seagulls in Utah. And I guess they brought him in to help fight some sort of goofy insect thing a while back because there's no ocean here. We're landlocked. But we have a bunch of seagulls. So this dump had, I mean, seagulls everywhere. I mean, what looks like paper isn't paper on that video. And I was like, whoa. So I started filming with my camera. It was raining. There's seagulls everywhere. Well, I've got footage I can put into this video of seagulls, slow it down, and I know it's also, it should, if I mean, if they're conscious enough when it comes to social, political, whatever, and most people aren't. I mean, let's just put it that way. Let's just face it. They just aren't. Even the ones that I'm talking about in this social political commentary called Suboptimal. Oh, they're in a dump and there's a bulldozer and this, carbon footprint and, the environment. And, yeah, you could read all that into it, but then that only helps support this me mocking what people are doing socially, politically today without any sort of critical intellect behind it. And so the Jesus part comes in, obviously, because, well, I'm a Christian. And so the video zooms in on that girl, and because the last line or the last two lines is there. When Jesus comes back, I'll explain it for the cheap seats. When Jesus comes back, there's not going to be any question on whether or not your theology and doctrine are correct. There's no question, because regardless of what your theology or doctrine is, it doesn't matter. It's canceled out and moot, because Jesus has come back. Mm-hmm. Messiah has returned. And if your doctrine or theology doesn't align with him, you're SOL, buddy. Mm-hmm. That's the end of that. What are you going to do? You're going to try and convince him that what you think about whatever is correct, and he's yeah. So the ending says, that when he comes back, there's not going to be any question on who belongs to him. Mm-hmm. And then it goes, I think he sees you, and then it zooms in on that girl that's captured, because he loves us. Mm-hmm. He loves the brokenhearted. He loves the disenfranchised. He loves the sinner. He loves the one that's on the outs. He loves the one that is hurting, that is questioning everything. He loves humanity. He died for humanity. Mm-hmm. Even the guy that is absolutely 1,000% incorrect with his theology and doctrine, and we know that's a possibility because he asked a question regarding the law in the Gospels. How do you see? He used the term, how do you see that? How do you see it? And the person answered, and Jesus says, you're right, which tells us there are potential incorrect beliefs or thoughts regarding theology and doctrine. Right. And we have to be sure ours is correct. And how do we know that? Well, it has to be in contextual alignment with him, Genesis to Revelation. And unfortunately, mainstream Christianity isn't, which is why, again, this is a socio-political commentary. And that's why I said, when he returns, there's going to be no question on who is his and who isn't his. Mm-hmm. Yep. And he sees you. And he just so desires for you to be in complete alignment with his theology and his doctrine. And when you have 3,000 denominations in Protestantism, I guarantee you right now, God's not schizophrenic. There's only one doctrine and one spirit. If there's 30,000 denominations, and I believe it's close to that, if you look up the numbers, only 29,999 of them are wrong.
We're just going to end it right here because Allan pretty much just gave us sermon on the mount.
My job here is done.
So,
is that the first question? You asked the question. I'm going to give you the answer.
I love it, man. So I have a couple questions.
Oh, it's just a cute little song.
All of that wrapped up in a 3-minute little ditty.
I have a couple questions of lesser import, if I may, Sir Allan.
You can do whatever you want, man. I'm good. I can do this all day.
So I'm curious now, if I may ask, You mentioned kind of, I'm going to call them Easter eggs, if you will. You mentioned the seagulls. You like dropping in seagulls at different songs, different projects. What is it about the seagulls?
I'm a Southern California boy. I love the ocean.
Gotcha.
Love the smell and the sound. I miss
Okay.
it. You know, I spent 18 years in Dallas, and I'm pushing 13 years here, so I go to the ocean as often as I can. I love the mountains, mind you. I love where I live, but man, I need my ocean.
Sure. Sure. Then I just want to make mention, and maybe this was the point. I'm rocking along, I'm rocking along to suboptimal, and then when we go to the drop off and that low frequency, it's irritating. And maybe that is the point because I'm going along, I'm bebopping along, and then we get to, and so is that kind of the point to stir
No.
emotion?
Well, yeah, definitely to stir an
And
emotion.
that's what I mean by irritating.
Not
It's like,
irritating. I wasn't trying to irritate somebody, but I love the fact that it irritates you because then it means it's working better than I anticipated. So I had the pleasure of I had the pleasure of interacting with a very dear old friend of mine in this process. He was the one that was telling me back in earlier this year, or maybe even last year, you've got to do this thing. You've got to do it. You've got to do this. Make this new record. Because I wrote 90% of it from scratch since April, May of this year. I mean, this was done like in 2 or 3 months. It's just, and he was like, so when I played him the demo with that part, he was like, "Oh my gosh, that's brilliant," because it's so not, it so doesn't fit. That's, if anything, that's the point. Because one, I've done it before. Two, the worst thing about music to me is knowing where the guy's going next. That means, to me, that's just cheap, lazy songwriting. Oh, I know where he's going next. Oh, I know this chord progression, and I've never heard this song before. To me, that's just lazy, lame-ass songwriting. And unfortunately, that's the majority. That's commercial pop. I'm not that guy. I've never been that guy. If I do that, I do that deliberately. But you're not going to. No one's expecting that. And even when you know it's going to happen, it's still a little what. There it is. You know what I'm saying? I love that. I love that. It keeps you on your toes.
Gotcha. And it did. Yeah. So,
And it does.
friends,
Do you fast forward through it?
No. I listened to the whole thing.
I mean, checking.
I'm not a fast forwarder. I've got to experience the song because I know artists are saying and meaning something.
There's intention.
Artists
there.
are, yeah.
And exactly. And I know, I don't know
What'd you say, Jeff?
I said there's some kind. Usually, there's an intention behind it.
Yeah.
And you want to experience it to see if you get the intention.
Right. And if you listen to if you pay attention to what I listen to and who I've always said I've listened to, like all the bands I listen to, they all do the same thing. We all come from the same place, you know.
Allan, what do you wish for the listener to take away from Auditory as a whole?
The look on my face? What's the words to the look on my face? I want them to take away, I don't know, it's kind of like, is it a nice cold drink on a hot day? Is it a cup of cocoa around the fireplace on a winter's day? I know I sound like a total freak right now, but it's like I want it to be something familiar, comforting, and enjoyable. You know, it's like, I mean, 15 years is a long time, and I'm sure everyone thought he's done, he's over and done with, because we had such an aggressive 4 years with Ministries Walking. You know, we were on the road 6-8 months out of the year. We'd show up to Cornerstone and play half a dozen times. Played more festivals with Ministries Walking than I did with any of my other bands. It was amazing. I mean, it was an amazing time, and to do it with my children made it even more amazing. And then I just disappeared. And because we moved the whole group to Utah, and we were just doing life. And then God told me to start writing books, and so I did. So I'm sure they all thought, oh, and I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they've used the word gift. Thank you for this gift. You've given us a gift with this new thing, and it's really good, and it's the production, blah blah blah. So I'm getting the sense that they're getting that feeling, surprised, but then not. But okay, he's the old man still has it, because I'm not 30 I'm not 30 years old anymore. I wasn't even 30 when I made Sin Disease. I was 25, 26. Oh, he can still do this thing, and I like it. And it's not like, oh, he's like going back and no. I think it sounds like, oh, he's still moving forward. And I think and that's exciting to a listener, because you remember, I'm a listener of music. When, oh wow, a new thing comes out, and they're not stuck 15, 20 years ago. Even if it's just 2 or 3 steps forward, that's something, because that's going to take me somewhere. That's what I hope they get out of it.
So then, Allan, with regard to the material which makes up Auditory, what is your wish for it as it stands before Shaddai?
I learned that lesson a long time ago. I learned that lesson in the 3 years that it took to make Jawbone of an Ass, and that's it. Literally, I will not be judged by how many records I sold, how many butts I put in concert seats. You know what I'm saying? I will not be judged by anything I've done artistically, as far as like, record sales, the stuff that the world measures you by. He's not looking at that. And he's looking at my heart. Am I serving him 1,000% as prescribed? See, there's an actual, in the prescribed manner, in the prescribed order, in the prescribed way. And that lesson, the proof text for that is when David, the greatest musician, writer, I'm going to say, simply because it was 100%, all that God stuff. King David is bringing the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. And he had it on a brand new cart with brand new oxen. And the cart tipped over. A guy ran up to hold up the ark from falling and died. And it freaked everybody out, scared the crap out of David. And then he found out when he inquired of the Lord, why would he do something like that? That's horrific. Why would you kill this man? You go, well, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it in the prescribed way. The prescribed way is you carry it on the shoulders of the Levites. And, so when they, the second time around, when they tried to bring it in, they brought it in on the shoulders of the Levites, and it was done correctly. So it's not he's going to judge me by whether or not I did this thing called Christianity correctly as prescribed by, and what do we have? Well, we have his word, and we have his Holy Spirit to teach us that. And I write books for a living now, and I speak about theology, doctrine, apologetics. I never saw that coming. And he's brought people into our lives that were like, I don't know, I'll use the word pastoring or discipling. Equipping is the proper word. And the fact that after all these years, he's still allowing me he's still using me. I'm still being allowed to be used to prepare a people for his return. Because you got to remember, regardless of what happened, Scaterd Few started off as a ministry to the homeless punk rock street youth of Hollywood. It was a homeless outreach to the punk rock kid in Hollywood Boulevard. That's how Scaterd Few started. And so it's always had a ministerial no matter how much I screwed it up, it always had some sort of outreach type of thing. And the fact that I'm still being allowed to, that he's still allowing me to be used like that, whether it's through this or through a book or whatever, blows my mind. And so I just want to be a good steward. I only want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant at the end of my life. That's my goal. I want to hear that so bad. And I know what's required of that. And so I align myself daily in whatever I do. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, to get that end result. So that's what I hope.
Allan, you mentioned
Him. Yeah.
You mentioned King David as being the greatest musician, and you were talking about bringing your music before Shaddai as prescribed. I just want to say that I'm glad that you're back at it, and but if I ever see you dancing before the Lord naked, I'm out. Okay.
Well, here's the thing, though.
That'll be the next cover of his album.
Right. Well, that's what Christianity teaches, that David danced naked in the streets. But that's not what the scriptures actually say. The scriptures actually say he danced wearing a linen ephod, which is worse because he wasn't a Levite, and the linen ephod was the only thing was only to be worn by a Levitical priest. David's not from the tribe of Levi. Do you know what tribe he's from?
I don't.
Judah.
Okay.
Right? Because Jesus is from the tribe of Judah and he's from the line of David.
Sure.
Right? But David had no business wearing a linen ephod. That should have killed him. Because see, the linen ephod, remember, the Levites were given garments to wear that were holy garments. They were prophetic garments, holy, that would keep them alive while in the presence of God. Anybody in the presence of God without these linen garments would have been killed. And then they had to take off those linen garments before they could go into the general population so that that glory wouldn't, because see, if they walked out into the general pop wearing those holy prophetic spiritual garments, now we're talking uber supernatural here, that glory would have spread to the people and killed them because they weren't clean. They hadn't gone through the process of atoning or atonement. That's what the Levites were for. So it would have killed them because they would have been found in their judged, right? Judged. So the fact that David is dancing in the streets wearing a linen ephod, which should have killed him. One, what's he doing with one? Well, we know how. We know why it tells you. But one, what's he doing with one? Two, why is he able to access it? Why is he able to wear it and it doesn't kill him? Is mind-blowing. This guy had so much mojo with God. There was like God was like bending his own rules for this guy. And Jesus even brings it up when talking to the Pharisees about keeping the Sabbath. He tells them, David and his mighty men who were rabble, these guys were like just ruffians, ate the showbread, and that should have killed them as well. So no, he wasn't naked. He was dancing with a linen ephod, which is actually worse.
I apologize. I was trying to make
you're
a little
good.
funny there.
You're
but
good.
If you know, anyway. So hey, there's your album title.
But I appreciate the dad joke.
Mojo with God. There's your next album title. So
No.
Died for me, a lonely man. Showed me his love again and again. Can't hide the fact that he loves you. I'm here to tell you what to do. You think it's cool for me? Well, how about you? You died at 73. His love is true.
Allan, really quick then. Not to do a deep dive into each one, but
You can do whatever you want. Whatever you want.
are an author, and I would like to get back to the music because there's several more questions about that.
Sure.
But let's touch really quick on your books, and maybe if you can give our viewers and again, friends, links in the description. But I think you've got like 4 books that you have out. One is Romans, A Call to Belong.
Yeah, that's the new one. That came out in April.
Give a brief synopsis really quick for our
Right.
viewers.
Okay, so Acacia Grove Press is our publishing company, acaciagrovepress.com. We're self-published. Romans just came out. Romans, A Call to Belong, just came out in April. I don't write commentary. No one has time for that. That's just ridiculous. What I end up doing, and the Lord God told me to do this. I had no idea I was ever going to be doing this. Is I break them down and I unpack. Right? I've never been convinced that Christianity got Romans correctly. I know the Christian narrative on Romans. And it's the exact opposite of what Paul is actually saying, which is very confusing. And let me put it this way, it's incriminating. My book on Romans is incriminating. It's right here. It's incriminating because it's literally telling you what Paul is saying using Paul's own text, right? It's not my interpretation. He's literally quoting the Torah out the gate. I think it's chapter 1 or chapter 2. He's quoting Torah. He's quoting the law to back up what he's saying. But we've been told Paul didn't obey the Torah. In fact, that he preached against it as the apostle to the Gentiles, and that Gentiles had no business keeping the law of Moses, which isn't true. As Acts 15 tells us that. The 4 things that the Gentiles are mandated to obey before even coming to salvation are law of Moses points, and 3 of them are dietary. So the Christian narrative has been false. Peter, 10 years after the epistle to the Romans was written, Peter says that a lot of people don't misunderstand Paul's letters, and that and because they're unstable and ignorant, they twist it to their own
view.
Instability, yeah. I mean, it's like damning to them. They twist Paul's words because they're ignorant and unstable, and they're lawless. Peter actually says. So that's Romans.
Well, okay, and then
That's my book on Romans.
Exodus to Ingathering.
Yeah, Exodus to Ingathering. It's basically it's like a devotional. 52-week devotional. You can read it out of order. It's not like you don't have to read it one through in order. You can read it in any way, shape, or form. And it's basically touching on the pieces, the stuff that happened to Israel. They leave Egypt to go to their prophetic inheritance, the promised land. Instead of it taking 2 weeks, it takes 40 years. And the entire generation that walked out of Egypt is killed in the desert, except for 2 guys. Joshua and Caleb, and so the premise of Exodus to Ingathering is 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 12, and Paul says these things happened to Israel. What happened to Israel in the desert as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, our warning, on whom the end of the age has come. Paul is telling his predominantly, once again, it incriminates the Christian narrative, making it a false narrative. Paul, in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 through 12, he's explaining that what happened to Israel in the desert was written down as a warning for the New Testament church, for the Gentile church, because he's predominantly writing to Gentiles. He's the apostle to the Gentiles, and he's writing to Corinth, his church in Corinth, telling them that what happened to Israel in the desert was written down as a warning to them, to the New Testament church. I'll use that terminology. So that begs the question, well, what happened to them? They didn't keep God's Torah. They didn't keep the law, and God killed them for it. Oops, and that's a warning, Paul is saying, to the Gentile church, which destroys the narrative that the law, the Torah of Moses, isn't applicable to the Gentile faith profile. Well, that's a lie. That's demonic. And that's not going to work out very well for you, and you won't be able to argue that fact when he comes, because that's just not how it's going to work. The Message Bible puts it like this. These are all warning markers, danger, in our history books, written down so that we don't repeat their mistakes. Our positions in the story are parallel. They at the beginning, we at the end, and we are just as capable of messing it up as they were. I don't read the Message Bible. I think that's a goofy translation, if you can even call it that. But that's a great way to put what we're talking about in the Exodus to Ingathering. And it's like I said, it's like a devotional. Now that I've completely ostracized your entire audience.
No, no. So, Alan, what about this thing is spiritual?
So this thing is spiritual. I don't even have it on my desk. That was, it's about the spirituality, the inherent, just the spirituality of art, the spirituality of, and since I'm a musician, I focus on that, but it's the spirituality of art, music, painting, sculpturing, whatever. And as a Christian, even if you're not a quote artist, you're a worshiper. You're supposed to be a worshiper, and that's supposed to be done in spirit, according to Jesus in the red letters. So it's about the spirituality of art, music, and the biblical text regarding it. So here I am. I got saved a month before I turned 16. I'm a musician. I did something apparently most people don't do, and that's, okay, well, I'm a musician. What does the Bible say about musicians? And of course, to my surprise, I was surprised to find out that, the Levitical priesthood, David set up as the musicians, and they went before the army, and the music that they played was a weapon against the foes of Israel, because Judah goes first. The musicians go first before the army. Well, that's not passive at all. That's pretty aggressive. In fact, that's pretty insane. So as a Christian, now that I'm a Christian and I'm a musician, what does the Bible say about me? Well, I should be functioning like a Levitical priest. I should have a supernatural ability to thwart off physical enemies. And we also find out that the prophets used music and musicians as oracles to get prophetic downloads from God. Elijah does that. He gets a harpist brought in to play music as an oracle so that he would know what to do when, in the spiritual realm. The case of David, God plagues King Saul with a demonic possessed spirit for his disobedience, and David is brought in to play his harp or lyre to quelch him manifesting a demonic spirit. So wow, that's a lot of mojo. So there's this high bar I'm going to have to figure out as a musician, as part of my, because I'm a Christian now, and so my trajectory as a young Christian was, I've got to get to this place where my music is able to transcend or enter into that spiritual realm here in our earth realm for supernatural exploits, whether it's healing, casting out demons, whatever. And so that's what that book's about. Like I said, your poor audience is like,
No.
my pastor doesn't even talk about this stuff.
And again, with the mojo, I'm telling you, mojo with God. That's, so now.
Allan Aguirre, God's mojo. Yeah, that's not over very well.
How about the Feast Unlocked, Alan?
Feast Unlocked, that was the first book I wrote. He literally told me to write that book, and I'm like, but I don't write books. I don't know how to do that. And he said, crickets. And so I started. It's basically once again unpacking a breakdown of Leviticus 23, which lay out the Sabbath, the counting of the Omer, the new moon observance, the and the 7 feasts of God. They're not Jewish holidays. God says, these are my feasts for my people. I want to be his people. And if you ask any Gentile Christian if they want to be his people, they'll say yes. So this is what, again, is your Christianity on the back of a cart, or are you being carried on the shoulders of the Levites? That's the difference between doing it your way or doing it man's way. Your denomination's way or doing it God's way. They're not the same. It's literally Christianity versus the Bible. And I've been talking about that since I was, since the 80s. The Bible says something completely different than Christianity. It's literally the exact opposite of Christianity, what they believe and what they teach, and there's a reason for it. And so in the Feast Unlocked, I break down Leviticus 23, what they are, why they are, how they're observed scripturally. And then the apologetics part is, why were we never taught that? Why is our church not doing that? Why does our pastor not do that? Why does our denomination not do that? And then you have to go back to what happened with Catholicism in the 2nd and 3rd century and how they outlawed everything in that book, how they outlawed the Torah, how they outlawed the law of Moses. And why? Well, they were anti-Semites, and they didn't want you as a Gentile Christian to be confused for a Jew, because Jews are bad, and we see that happening right now, everywhere. A restaurant just got shut down in Washington D.C. A Jewish restaurant got shut down in Washington D.C. just this last week because of the anti-Semitic attacks on them, not their food, but against them as Jews. And that's happening in the United States of America right now. And we've been warning about it for a long time, but no one's listening. So that's what that book's about. It's the breaking down of Leviticus 23 and why it is absolutely crucial to your faith profile as a Gentile, as a Christian, because you're not doing it. So instead, you're doing what the Catholics told you to do, which aren't in your Bible. The Mass of Christ, Easter, Lent, for example. And those are just the replacements. The Mass of Christ is a replacement for Hanukkah. Easter is a replacement for Passover. Lent is a replacement for the counting of the Omer. And it was strategically and deliberately done. And since Protestantism is Reformed Catholicism, that's why. Oh, and Sunday Sabbath is a replacement for God's biblical Sabbath. So what does that say about Christendom? They actually don't do what the scriptures say. Just like the Pharisees, just like Israel. Jesus told them in Mark 7, you got all these traditions of men that you do that make the scriptures null and void. That's what Christmas, Easter, Sunday Sabbath, and Lent do. It makes the actual scriptural instruction null and void. And and I know what we've been taught because I'm a Christian. We were taught that Jesus did away with the law. He said he didn't. So regardless of what you think your Bible says, regardless of what you think Paul said, regardless of whatever you think, Jesus in the red letters clearly said, I did not come to do away with the law and the prophets. And then there's like 30 some odd verses following that, Matthew 5:17, explaining how he didn't come to do away with it, but to fulfill it. Those are two different Greek words. And so I have to break all this down because Christianity does not have a reference experience for anything that I'm talking about. And in Romans, sometimes I have 8 to 10, 12 pages of explaining what Paul's about to say because Paul's quoting the law, and because Christians don't have a reference to what that is. How are they reading Romans? Well, they're just glazing over it. They can't actually apply Romans to their life, to their faith profile, because they don't know what he's talking about. When Paul brings up the law of sin and death, they don't know what that means. When Paul brings up divorce, why is he talking about divorce? To set up your salvation. When he starts talking about salvation in chapter 10, they don't know what the correlation is. And when he brings up the dough offering, they have no idea what he's talking about. I could ask, I'm not here to embarrass you, but I could ask all three of you, do you know anything about the dough offering? And chances are you don't. So then you don't understand what Paul's saying. You don't understand what his point is or why he would bring that up to make his point. See what I'm saying? And so you can't apply it if you don't understand it. So it's very, like I said, it's very incriminating. That's what my books are about.
Allan, I'd like to ask you then, tell us about Chameleon Church. Is this where you are a pastor at?
Well, so it's not an actual brick and mortar church. I mean, if we were in Dallas, so when we were in Dallas, we would have, we had we went to we went to a regular church, because that's very important. We absolutely support that, that you should be involved with a legit church and be under submission to authority and leadership and be discipled. I've been saying that since day one. See, that's the beautiful thing. I've been saying this since the 80s and the 90s, and it's on record. So it's like my message hasn't changed at all. And so when we were in Dallas, we were discipling some people. So we had like about 16 people over to our house every week. And we kept it at 16 because when you're discipling people, having people in and out doesn't help the ones that are there every week, right? That's important. So we capped it off at 16, and we would do a weekly thing, and then we also do the Sabbath. We have a Sabbath meal on Friday, like very, very typical, traditional. Well, having a meal on Sabbath, not our actual observance, isn't typical or traditional. And then all these people wanted to come, but because we were discipling these people, we had a cap. So then the last Friday of every month, we'd open it up. We'd do community Shabbat, community Sabbath, and it would hit 40, 50 plus people. And this is like, 16, 18, 20 years ago, right? And so we were having, a lot of people would show up. And so if we were in Dallas right now, we would easily have a brick and mortar church. Doing what we're doing, we'd easily have a brick and mortar church of 150, 200 people, easily. But we're in Utah, and we can't get people to go to a Bible study to save their lives. There's this really weird thing here in Utah, even among Christians. They don't like playing with each other. They won't play with each other. They're afraid you're going to steal their people. It's just really, I live where a cult runs the place. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so that shouldn't surprise you that the Christians would also get tainted like that, So it's online, and I think that's the goofiest thing, that we have like an online church, because I think that's just goofy. But that's what he's told us to do. That's what we're doing. It's awesome. It's a great group of people. We do a physical. We've done some like men's retreats. We do a physical Shavuot conference. We've done 4 now in a row, and so people come physically for that. We just did a little, low-key Sukkot thing, camp out, where we had, almost a couple dozen people, and it's awesome. So that's what Chameleon Church is, but it's an equipping ministry, and it's primarily online, which is weird. It's weird to me, but it's awesome. It's a great group of people. Yeah, they're here because they want to learn. They're not here for any other reason, and that's exciting, because they at that point they make my job easier. You know what I mean? Because I've always said I'd rather do this with 5 people that are balls. You can't say balls to the wall, can you? I'd rather do this with 5 people that are all in. There you go. Than 50 people that don't give a rip.
Flesh for ears and flesh for eyes, deteriorize the godly disguise, like weird and giddy, wasting away in the trance of the chameleon's maniacal gaze. Spirit is willing and the flesh is still weak and holds to stay right.
So, Allan, regarding the formation of Scaterd Few circa 1983, I'm curious, when the band first started going, did you all have a specific goal or vision for the band, or was it kind of like, let's start a band and it just kind of happened along?
Yeah, no, it was deliberate. So here's the crazy thing. I don't know why I remember the actual date. It was March 7th, I believe. I don't know how that's just so weird. I had returned. I left the U.S. in January of 1980. My parents got rid of me. I had just recorded a single with my little punk rock band. I'm 15 years old, on guitar. Don Bowles, drummer for the Germs, is in the band. He's playing bass and singing. He's already famous from 45 Grave and the Germs. The filming of the Decline of Western Civilization, the only one that matters, the first one, hadn't happened yet, and so I'm 15 years old. My trajectory. I mean, back then, all you had to do is walk this into and since he's already a known, drummer for the Germs, if all you had to do was walk into K-Rock to Rodney Bingenheimer, he'd play it and boom, and it was really that good. So that's what was about to happen to me, and so God had other plans. The next thing I know, I'm on a one-way ticket to Central America to live with a missionary uncle. My parents sent me to live with my mom's uncle, him and his family. He was a Christian missionary down there in Guatemala. One-way ticket, false pretenses. I was going there for 4 months, but it was basically I was never coming back. And it's not that I wasn't smart enough to know that I was being conned. I was, but I also knew I had to get on that plane because the Holy Spirit was just overriding everything. I didn't even know what that was because I had no faith reference, no reference experience. So when I came back, so I get saved down there in Guatemala. My uncle's, trying to help me out with music, and it's all Christian rock, and it's like, of course it's going to be exactly what you think it is, because I hadn't made the music yet to change Christian rock to go where it needed to go for guys like me. I hadn't done that yet, right? So he's playing me, Keith Green and Phil Keaggy, and I really liked What a Day, and I could understand the passion behind Keith Green, and he's playing me Daniel Amos, and I'm like, oh my God, I could see there's stuff on Shotgun Angel that's just freaking mind blowing because they were like the American Eagle, they were like the Christian Eagles, right? Essentially. And it was like, this is amazing. The production quality. Go back and listen to Shotgun Angel. The production
Side 2,
amazing.
It is well beyond its years.
The Whistler. Who's doing that?
Right.
In secular, let alone Christian.
Lady Goodbye.
So, oh yeah. So I heard this amazing stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the band.
Yes.
So I was really gravitated to that. So I remember telling my cousin, who's like 2 years younger than I am, if I ever get back to the States, and if God ever lets me do music again in the States, I want this Terry Taylor guy involved because, come on. And then, of course, Alarma came out. Horrendous Disc and Alarma came out, finally. So that was amazing because there's Horrendous Disc, and then Alarma. It's like, see, I knew it. I called it, And then, so when I got back to the States, I had been like 3+ years later. I'm 19. I was about to turn 19. I think I hadn't turned 19 yet. I was like a week or two away from turning 19. And I started, I had no reference experience to American Christianity. I had no idea that American Christianity didn't believe 90% of what I had just lived and experienced in the third world, the supernatural piece of it, because they just don't. Anyway, so I started going to a church with my brother, and because he had found faith while I was gone, and one of the elders of the church said, "Hey, we want to start a youth ministry. We want to do like an evangelistic youth thing. What would you do? How would you go about it?" And I go, "Well, I'd start a band. I'd use music. I'd start a band." He goes, "Well, what kind of music and what kind of band would you do?" I go, "Well, I'd probably go back to my own and do a punk rock band." He goes, "All right, how much would it cost?" And I'm like, "Well, we would have to at least start with a demo. A 2-song demo is a good place to start." And he goes, "All right, let me know how much." I'm like, I literally had been home 2 to 3 weeks max, and I'm in the studio recording a 2-song demo for a band I was calling Scaterd Few, which came out of Smite the Shepherd and the Sheep. I was hanging out with these young Christian guys my age as well. A bunch of teenagers, high school, college age guys, and a lot of Bob's Big Boy late at night and stuff. And I remember I was walking from the car to the restaurant, and we're all on fire about what are we going to do with this new band thing, this ministry they wanted us to do for the youth. And as we were walking, I just literally just out of nowhere said, "Smite the shepherd and the sheep shall be scattered." And then I said, "We're the scattered few." I'm like, there it is. That's how the Holy Spirit works anyway. And it was we were going out to Hollywood Boulevard on Friday and Saturday nights, ministering to the homeless street punks on Hollywood Boulevard. They were my age, from Oklahoma and from all over the country coming to Hollywood. And so we started a ministry to the homeless youth, and they were punks. And what better way to drive that but a band? And I wanted to be like the Bad Brains, because the Bad Brains were the only other band in the world that had a positive scriptural, biblical, lyrical content, and that's because they were Rastafarians. So that helped, I wanted to, and was I surprised that Christianity responded, or I'll use the word reacted. Was I surprised that Christians reacted the way they did? You can't look like that. You can't sound like that. You can't do that. There's no way that'll ever happen. Undercover is the hardest we'll ever get. And I'm like, but that's like bebop. I mean,
Yeah.
God makes me a happy boy.
Except for maybe two songs. It was God Rules and hey,
like,
wait a minute, I've been ripped off, but everything else would be
right. And they were like, and I'm like, but that's not even punk rock. I mean, that's not punk rock at all. You've never heard punk rock? Well, this is punk rock for us. I'm like, but you don't count. You're Christians. You're like, why are you allowing? Yeah,
it's like pop punk.
Why are you allowing yourself to be insularly inbred? That's bizarre. What about the world? There's a world out there dying. We're hanging out with 14, 15, 17, 19-year-old kids that are living in that are I forgot what it's called again. It's been so long. They're squatting in these abandoned hotels in Hollywood. And your little quote pseudo punk rock band like Undercover and stuff isn't going to make any impact on their life, because all they're going to do is go. Anyway, it made my job a lot harder, because that's what was going on. That was those cassettes were being distributed under the false pretense of punk rock, and I'm like, you're just making my job harder, because they're gonna, if they hear that, they're gonna say, oh, there goes those Christians again, literally clueless and have no idea what's going on in the real world, and it's 1,000% true. And here we are, an actual real punk rock band. Inside, we're on the inside. We're not on the outside trying to get in with fake music. We're literally on the inside doing punk rock. So did it surprise me that Christians were going to react the way they did? Absolutely. And then I was surprised that they reacted to the extent that they did. I don't think I was that quite surprised that there was going to be such a blowback, but to the extent that we will do everything in our power to make sure you don't exist and that you don't succeed. And so we went to the studio with Terry that summer and we recorded like 11 songs. Half of them are on Out of the Attic. Mm-hmm. And Terry told us, look, these people, I'm not going to say anything because that's not my story to tell, but we were being confronted while in the studio making those recordings by labels, because we were in the center. We're with Terry and Tom Roy at the epicenter of those days, Whitefield Studios. That's where everybody worked out of. So all the labels are there. They're coming over to see the they're coming over to look at the anomaly. That's because this has never happened before, and it's the summer of 1983. There was a punk rock band called Circle One. The singer got saved, and the guy that helped him get saved, his family owned an old wig factory in Hollywood. So now we had a place that we could bring blankets and canned goods and toiletry items and stuff for these people, for these kids my age that are living in abandoned hotels, squatting in abandoned hotels. They're runaways. I was 19, and Christianity. So I had been back in the States for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and seeing and immediately being slapped in the face with the reality of American Christianity. They don't give a crap about the world, nor are they going to do anything to try to win them over. It was all a self-serving enterprise, and it disgusted me, and it still does.
It's funny you mentioned. You were going through the exact same thing. All the things you're talking about echo what Larry Norman went through,
Yeah.
and his attacks on American Christianity, not doing their job, not caring for the people, not feeding the poor, not doing, and you did it with a different brand of music. He did it with his brand of music and got ostracized just as much. And
Yeah.
every band that came after you, the Stripers, the Barnabases, all the bands that broke into the metal, same thing. They got backlash. The Christian church has always pushed back against anything like that. So it's not surprising, but sad.
Right. And so what ends up happening? You get all these a whole wave of fake, like you said, pop punk bands, a whole wave of fakery that had nothing to do with the world. It had nothing to do with reaching out to the world. Because that was the question Larry Norman asked. Are we here to entertain ourselves, or are we here to bring the message of the gospel to a lost and dying world? I'm all about entertainment, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am. But if you're going to do it for entertainment, say that up front. Because they didn't say that. Oh, it's the vehicle. The music's the vehicle to reach the people with the gospel. That was the propaganda line, but it had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it at all. So anyway, and before anyone says, "Oh, Allan's busting on Undercover," no, I'm not. That's just the band that was doing it predominantly. And here's one of the things I will say. I'll make it very clear. When Scaterd Few was in their legal label hassles with Jawbone of an Ass, Joey Taylor with Broken Records swooped in and did everything he could to save the day. And I've always thought that was incredibly awesome of him to try and do that. It didn't work out, but that was no fault of his. But he actually came up with this checkbook and said, "What do I need to do to fix this for you?" I'm like, wow. So I have no ill will towards Joe or any of those guys. I mean, I'm just talking Christian music history here.
Sure.
Everyone knows it now, but that's what we were dealing with. And so Scaterd Few started off as an outreach to the homeless punk rock youth that congregated at Crocker Bank on Hollywood Boulevard. On the week, they were homeless.
Now you mentioned earlier in that conversation that Scaterd Few will never do anything again. You said you killed it on purpose. Is there any story behind that?
There is, but it's not flattering for the other guys. So.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna hopscotch around a little bit here, Alan, because
Dude,
you
man,
mentioned Jawbone of an Ass, and perfect segue into a couple questions I had about that album. I didn't know this. This is when I first became aware of Scaterd Few, was from some friends of mine who were fans of Scaterd Few back in the day, and so kind of my introduction to you guys. But I didn't realize that Jawbone had been recorded three times.
The first two times they got about 60 to 65% each time, first and second time. Yeah.
And the first time, if I am not mistaken, correct me where I'm wrong, I believe it was with Gene and the late great Gene Eugene and Terry Scott Taylor for the mainstream Vox Vinyl label.
Correct.
Second time with Dave Hackbarth and Terry Taylor for Blonde Vinyl, which was the late great Michael Knott's imprint. And
then that's when Joey stepped in to try and save, because the Vox Vinyl guys came after Mike Knott took the masters. They ran out of money and they couldn't finish the album. I'm like, well, how hard is this? It's not that hard. And so we went on to try and do it, and they wanted exorbitant amounts of money for the masters, for unfinished masters. I'm like, that's insane. Yeah. And so we just did it ourselves. Come and sue me.
So my question regarding all of this, and
you know who made it possible? Gyro and Jerome. They
For
give us the
Auditory?
recording studio for free. Come in and make it right here.
Wow, that's very
So
cool.
Mark Rodriguez and I did it.
I would just like to ask, I don't know how some of this works, myself as a lowly fan here, Alan, but do you have the recordings? I don't know if you have the masters.
No. So Vox Vinyl, when they said they shut down everything, they said, "Oh, we can't finish this." They kept the masters, and they wouldn't, and they were asking for crazy amounts of money to sell them, and we're like, that's not even reasonable. There's no one is going to pay you that amount of money for unfinished masters. And so when we did it with Mike Knott, he took the masters, so he's got 2 sets of masters that are unfinished, if he's still alive.
Mike Knott?
No, the Vox Vinyl.
Okay, because Mike, of course, passed away, but do you have any recordings of those 2 in your possession?
No, because we were still we already knew what we were doing, so we were in the process of recording it. So we didn't have to have any references because we knew what we were doing. Yeah.
I was just hoping that maybe there could be a super deluxe 3 version.
Right. No, but what you
Unreleased editions.
but what you hear is what we did the first 2 times. I mean, like to the letter.
I got you.
Nothing's different or nothing changed. And here's the thing: when we were on tour with HR at the end of 1990, opening up as Scaterd Few and doubling as his reggae band Human Rights, in 1990, we were playing music from Jawbone at the end in the fall winter of 1990. That's how ready that material was.
So, as I mentioned, I'm going to hopscotch around here just a little bit.
And I'll have you know that's pre everybody.
Gotcha.
Because what ends up being Jawbone is what would become nu metal. We were doing that in 1990. This is pre everybody. System of a Down, POD,
right?
Against the Machine, etc., etc. Yeah, it's crazy. But you either do things. My life during Jawbone of an Ass was on the back of a frickin' cart. I wasn't being carried by Levites.
Regarding this great album, which came out in 1990, Sin Disease, it's critically acclaimed, all music, 4.5 out of 5 stars. What's the deal? Yeah. What's the deal, Alan, with this painted on shirt? So what's the controversy there?
So we're on a Christian major label, and I said, I'll provide the photographs. I want it to look like so look, okay, open up that album and you'll see the image, you'll see the image, the photo I wanted them to use. That one. And they were like, that's a little too intense, man. Look at your face. So they put this docile little, I hate that cover. I hate it. I always have since I saw it. I was in shock. So here's what happened. They didn't use the image I wanted them to use, the other one, for one. Here I go, use this image and make it look like House of the Holy, that album cover. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, with all the weird people crawling on it. Yeah, it's kind of got that weird coloring effect to it.
Right. Let me see. How is this called? House of the Holy or Houses of the Holy?
Houses of the Holy. Led Zeppelin had the naked sirens crawling up the rocks.
Yeah, I go. So that's what I wanted them to do. There it is. I wanted them to basically have the image, take this photo and colorize it so it looks like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so my brother and I were art directors, so we were doing all the marketing. So we used to do these really cool underground looking stuff that we flyers and like little like newsletters that we would have on the on our table. And if you look at my Facebook page and on the album, the photo album called Scaterd Few, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. In fact, let me just bring it up real quick. There's an actual like a fanzine, like a little 4-page fanzine thing, because that's punk rock, where we would have we would make these for and have them on our table. And I'm gonna find this picture for you. And it's literally that image that I'm talking about. Oh, where is it? Albums. Oh, here we go. It'll be easier just to show you. Scattered Few. So here's a picture of us at a show back in 1990. And you see that picture on the bottom there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they basically try to emulate our graphics on my brother and I were putting together. Right? But it's corporate record company trying to be underground cool. It's not going to work. So I wanted that other picture that was more aggressive looking, and I wanted them to doctor it up to make it look like the Houses of the Holy, and that's what we got. So, but as you can tell by the original image, I don't have a shirt on. Mm-hmm. So they doctored it up to look like I was wearing a shirt, so as not to offend the Christian bookstore. They literally said Christian bookstore grandmas with blue hair, right? Nothing was going to help us when it came to the Christian bookstore market. They
did that to a lot. They did that to a lot of bands, though. I mean, so many Christian metal bands were censored with their covers.
For less.
Yeah, but none of them were pulled.
For less, yeah.
But none of them were pulled like we were, and none of them had a slander campaign like we had.
Let's delve into this just a little bit. It's been suggested, and again, and for our viewers out there, so they will know, and Allan, as we discussed, I might ask a question and you might not. We have that pass button on the table. So, Allan, it's been suggested, that Scattered Few lyrical themes fall into perhaps two broad categories. There is the Judeo-Christian worldview and also human behavior, that of human behavior. And there were, for whatever reason, and I'm not exactly sure why, but, Sin Disease, a great album. There's the lyrical content, dealing with street themes, No Freedom in Basing, Glass God and other songs of that nature. And there were Rastafarian rumors. And this caused Zondervan to nationally pull the album from the shelves. Why the Rastafarian rumors?
Because I was personal friends with Bad Brains, and I had dreads. But I've never been a Rastafarian. That's not even. Yeah, I've never been a Rastafarian ever in my life.
And then another question of a little more candor.
If you don't know what you're talking about, you end up talking out of your ass. Right, and so right. He's personal friends with Bad Brains, and he's got dreadlocks. He must be a Rastafarian.
Because I've examined your lyrics, and I'm like, there's nothing Rastafarian in here, and
guilty by association.
Yeah.
Christians do that all the time.
They can
and no one had done reggae yet. No one had done reggae yet, so it's like they're freaking out.
Yeah,
man, I'm an easy target because I do things people only dream or think about. I actually do them and say them, and I'm very vocal about it. I'm not. I don't. And so it's an easy target, But But I guarantee you, 90% of what they're thinking or saying is just ridiculous. It's not. I was never a Rastafarian.
Sure. Allan, about a year after this album. Another question with a little more candor. There's the pass button. In a 1991 interview, I believe that you had mentioned, or you admitted, I don't know why the question was posed to you, but you admitted to having smoked marijuana. And
No. I admitted to being a pothead, to not having smoked,
okay.
But like I smoked marijuana.
Okay, and so I was going to ask about the context. And
yeah, so I I don't remember why it came up. Probably because of so we toured with HR, and I remember, these are secular shows, and Scattered Few fans came, and I remember one time we were in San Francisco, and they knocked on the backstage door. There was somebody there for me, so I stepped out, and it was some Scattered Few fans wanted to say hi, so I'm saying hi, and I remember one guy looking past my shoulder, and there was a whole bunch of Rastafarians in the room, and they're like, "Are they smoking pot? Excuse me, are they smoking pot?" And I'm like, "Oh no!" I'm like, "You're in a secular club. This is a reggae show. These are Rastafarians. Half these guys, HR's spiritual father was Ross Michaels, who played with Bob Marley. It's like, if this is going to be a problem for you, you should probably go home, right? Like right now, But it's like, so that's it was those type of things that probably brought the question up. And I would get letters from people, from fans. Remember when you had fan mail back in the days, how I was going to kill myself and your song about Glass God or whatever. And I didn't. We would, our honesty, my wearing my heart on my sleeve, my transparency changed and continues to change people's lives. And I'm not saying that to do this. Come on, who has time for that? I'm saying that because I didn't play the game. I didn't cater to the labels. I didn't cater to the DJs. I didn't cater to the industry. Why? Why would I do that? I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for the listener, just like I'm a listener, And I remember saying to myself when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, oh my gosh, it would be so cool to be a cult status level band. Yeah, no. I was a cult status. I'm still a cult level status type of entertainer, I think, artist, right? It doesn't pay the bills. You get, you're a forerunner. You blast open the gates, and then everybody just tramples over you and make it to the top. And you'll never make. You know what I'm saying? There's all that involved. David Bowie didn't. He had to die to get a number one. You know what I'm saying, or whatever. It's like it's just crazy. I didn't cater to the industry, and that was a problem for them. It wasn't a problem for me. I'm catering to the guy that's telling me how their life is changed because they stopped doing drugs, or their crazy street life. They came to Jesus. Or that's important to me, and so. When it came up, so I wasn't going to lie or play the game. So when the question came up, yeah, I smoke pot, but I'm actively kicking it with my pastor, and you can talk to my pastor. I am routinely going to him and giving him my paraphernalia and my herb, because I'm trying to kick this thing, and I would literally kick it within in less than a year after that interview, but no one cared because that's not newsworthy. What's newsworthy is, you got to remember, the rumors were a non-Christian band has infiltrated the Christian music scene and got a record deal and put a record out. Again, it's the guy that has absolutely very little information, lack of critical thinking skills. Do you really think Frontline that really happened? They knew everything about everything they needed to know, right? Because back then you had to have a pastoral reference. I had more than a pastoral reference. I had a pastoral relationship that they could call on and check on, and they did. So I had nothing to hide. Yeah, I smoke pot. I mean, you're absolutely ignorant and blind purposefully. You're like consciously ostrich in the sand, in the head in the sand, if you don't know or believe or think that all these other bands you guys champion don't smoke pot, drink to excessiveness, and are sexually immoral. You're an absolute idiot if you don't know that all those other bands do that. The ones that have been doing this in this scene, for how long? because they do. And so that made so when I admitted that, it made it very uncomfortable for some of those bands. They thought, well, what if he outs us? Yeah, because what are we? What is this? Fifth grade?
Yeah.
What's going on here? It's not my, you're not my monkey, not my circus. It's not, what do I care if you're doing whatever you're doing? And as we all know, now here we are 30 plus years later, these guys are, there's a bunch of crazy alcoholics and dying of it.
Yeah. We all,
Yeah, I haven't smoked pot since I quit in 1992, right after that interview.
every one of us struggles. We all need.
And it just speaks to the reality of the situation, and this isn't about God. It's a business, and I understand that it's a business, but I'm not going to play your fake Jesus thing. I'm not going to do that fake Jesus thing. Jesus isn't a commodity to me. Jesus is not a market. Jesus is not a means to a financial ends. No, I fear God. Jesus is my savior, and I've been my life's been bought with blood, and I've been saying this for a long time. That's why lying to CCM magazine wasn't even an option, wasn't even a consideration. I would never do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, there have been other bands. I mean, even
People
Michael
don't know
Sweet's
about
Michael Sweet's biography came out and revealed stuff about troubles they had and
Yeah.
issues they had. I mean, the people are people, and while on the
And
outside,
rock and roll is rock and roll.
yeah, they have to present the squeaky clean image, and they have to, of course, the church requires them to be holier than thou. And in truth, they
It's a
struggle,
farce.
they have issues, they're humans, and they fall, and as we all do. So,
Well, like you said, Larry Norman.
yeah,
This is nothing new. I was just
a lot
next
of
in line.
controversy with him.
Yeah.
Well, I just think every one of us guys should be more like the televangelists who never have any problems with women or anything and all that kind of stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah, they never do.
And I even bring that. Have you ever really read the lyrics of Sin Disease? I'm calling fascists out. I'm calling
Sure.
racism out. It's like, yikes.
Then you had other bands that were not, these guys were not. Were these guys have been considered punk? But the band The Warning with Terry really had Burrito on vocals. They did a bunch of cassettes.
Burrito,
Yeah,
the late Burrito.
Yes.
Burrito was actually in punk rock bands. That's how I met him.
I knew they were kind
In the
he had
80s.
some punk stuff, but like The
Yeah.
Warning tended to have a little. It was kind of noisy, punkish, but it was a little more metallic because it had Tracy G shredding guitar through the whole thing. But albums like Cut the Crap and a sin in the what was that one? In the midst of Sinner in the midst of horrors, or no. Anyway, they were all very, very in your face, and they were all calling out very strong. You were in good company in that. I mean, they did. I was glad to see their material later released. Rocks that put out all of that, because that stuff was very in your face. Never would have been on a signed. At least y'all were signed to a label. They would have never. But yeah, so it's been nice that's been reissued. But there were a lot of stuff that were definitely pushing back.
and we were talking to Narrow Path Records.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to sign with them. That's right. And I was going to say something, but it's not my story to tell. I know way too much. Anyway, but it was Terry, right? Once again, Terry Taylor, he goes, "You sure you want to do this?" Because we started playing out in '89 again at Scaterd Few, and he came and saw us. He goes, "You sure you want to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do this." He goes, "All right." And he's the one that got us that meeting.
I really revere, in my humble opinion, Terry Scott Taylor as a producer and a songwriter was a genius. And
I agree, 100%.
How back in the day, in the early '80s, how did you get your demo to Terry Taylor? Because this is well before social media.
It's a great story. It's a great story. So I remember I told my cousin while I was still in Guatemala, if I ever get back there, I want Terry Taylor to produce me. Well, I have a band. I have a 2-song demo. I need to go find Terry Taylor. So Alarma, you have the Alarma record?
Yes.
Right? If you look at the back of the Alarma record, it says Rebel Based Productions with a Pasadena phone address and phone number. I'm in Burbank. Pasadena's a hop skip, you know. So I called that phone number. I called Rebel Based Productions, and I left a voicemail or an answering machine message because it was in voicemail, right? And then somebody called me back, and well, this isn't really a working number. It's not really a da da da. So I did that. Got the next number, called it, left another message, da 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 da. And I did that. Because I'm aggressive and tenacious. I'm a businessman. Blam 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 blam. And I finally got Ed McTaggart on the phone.
Yep.
Right. So this connect the dots of phone tag, leaving messages, callbacks, pitching everyone all along the way. Finally got the number for Ed McTaggart. Called Ed, and he goes, "This is right down his alley. I will give him your name and your message, and your phone number." I'm living at my parents' house, right? So I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, I knew that was the end of the line. I'm talking to a band member. If whatever happens now, because I can't get past that, except for the actual, Terry Taylor, and sitting around the dinner table. I didn't tell my brother any of this. He was playing bass. I didn't tell him anything about what I was doing. And so the phone rings. We're around the dinner table, and my mom's like, "Hello? Yes, who's calling, please? One moment." And she looks at me and she goes, "Terry Taylor?" And inside I'm like, oh. But I'm like, gotta keep it cool. My brother almost chokes. He looks at me, and I looked at him and I gave him my if you only wish you were me. Did I just say that out loud? I'm sorry. And I'm like, so gotta keep it cool.
No
"Hey,
fanboy.
Terry, what's up?" And he's like, "Hey, what's up?" It was like instant, "What's up? What's up?"
What's up?
Yeah.
Trying to be big. How old
It's
are you, Alan?
It's like it's just Terry calling again. "What are you doing Saturday night?" One of those. This is one of those calls. It was just a
What are you
normal
wearing?
call. And I'm like, he goes, "So I heard you got a a band, a punk rock band, a demo, and yeah. When can we meet? I'd like to, I'd love for you to hear it. I'd love for you to see if we could work together." He goes, "Well, because I'm 19. I still don't have a driver's license because I've been gone in Central America, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador. You know what I'm saying? I've been busy, and so I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a car. I'm an hour plus away from Orange County. I'm in the Valley. I'm in Burbank, Hollywood, Burbank area, and he goes, "Well, I'm going to be up in your neck of the woods in North Hollywood." Working on I forgot. I don't remember who the artist was. It was a female though. He was producing. So maybe we could look that up because I never even looked it up. So I'll be at the studio there. Can you meet me there? I'll have like 2 minutes. I'm like, yeah. And so on that date, I went to that studio, waited in the parking lot for him to come out, said hello, shook hands, gave him the cassette. He looked at it. He put it, and the way he says it in the liner notes, I put it in the Bermuda Triangle of his trench coat because he used to walk around with a trench coat. Right? Mm-hmm. Boom, put it in there, and he goes, "All right, well, I'll take a look. I'll check it out, and I'll get back with you." And I thought, okay, I shook his hand. I met the man. That's all that's going to happen. I'm a 19-year-old kid. What do I know? And he called back, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later. He goes, "I love it. This is awesome." I'm like, he goes, "What do you want to do?" I go, "Well, I want to make a record and I want to get a record deal." He goes, "They're not going to sign you, but let's do it anyway." I'm like, "Let's do it."
Not going to sign you, that's for sure.
It was but see, he was like an older brother, uncle type, an older brother. Because what is he? 10 years older than me? He was like an older brother guy. Because I'm the oldest of my family. I didn't have an older brother, And he was going to shoot straight with me. He was going to tell me the truth, and I'm a big boy. Let's do it. And so we set up. What's it going to cost? What are we going to do? We set up a date. We're going to do a 2-day wham bam record and mix in 2 days thing. And that's what we did.
So
punk rock. That's how you do it.
I'm curious, Alan, on this great box set which is Scattered Few and Spyglass Blue. Out of the Attic is included here. Now, there's a plethora of songs. Is this all inclusive then of those sessions?
No, we've out of the 11 songs, I think there's only 4 or 5, maybe 6 from the 11. Yeah, because the other ones they just weren't, I don't know, good enough, or we did them better or whatever. I mean, because when we came out with Sin Disease, I went back and I rewrote some of the original songs, like While Reprobate, because While Reprobate was an original from '83. I was a better songwriter now, and so I made them better. I think I know I made them better, and so there was other ones that were just like maybe too cringy or whatever. So we didn't,
Well, I was curious about that because I was kind of doing my homework and I was kind of thinking, okay, this is kind of saying that only a smattering have been released on Out of the Attic, but I'm seeing all of the extras on here on the CD version for this box set, and I was wondering if that was the whole of those sessions, and you're saying it's not. And
well, how many are there? There's like 5 or 6, right?
Well, it says that 6 through 11, so 5 songs it says came from the Terry Taylor album. But now, when it says album, I mean, was that released under some other title at some point, or just
never
something
released?
off? Oh,
So
okay.
here's what happened. So it never, he couldn't get anybody no one would bite. I mean, and I told you the horror stories. Nothing will ever get harder than Undercover. That's as far. I mean, it'll never get harder than that. It's the A&R guys that passed on the Beatles. It's like those guys exist. There's more of them than the other guys that actually will sign like the Beatles. You know what I mean? They just don't have. They're not forward thinking. I don't know why they have the job, because they're not competent for the job. Who in their right mind would ever suggest here's the thing. If you're in the A&R industry, if you're signing bands for a record company, you should probably have a forward-thinking ability. And most of these guys never have and never will. I mean, who in their right mind could ever suggest with a straight face that Christian rock would never get harder than Undercover? That's just ludicrous, right? The same guys that didn't sign the Beatles said the same thing. Oh, these guys will nowhere. Really? Bowie had 11 consecutive major label single failures before Space Oddity. That's insane, right? So anyway, it was never released. No one would buy it. No one would put it out. And I was getting hammered, man. I'm 19 years old, and it's just the religious spirit of Christianity was just doing everything it can to choke me out. And so we had a cassette we made back in kind of like Out of the Attic. Had some live stuff, probably is Out of the Attic, live stuff, and some of the Terry Taylor stuff. And it was a cassette, and somebody started bootlegging it. Well, our sound man from 1983, Drew Fisher, had that tape because we gave it to him because he's our sound man. Well, Drew Fisher, this sound man, he would end up being the sound man for international tours for Stryper, Barren Cross, Bride, stuff, Believer, right? And so this guy traveled the world for 4, 5, 6 years doing front of house sound for these big, huge metal bands. And guess what he would play before each show, before the bands would play? He would play that Scaterd Few cassette. And people would come to him from all over the world. Oh my God, what is that? He goes, it's an LA band that doesn't exist. It's called Scaterd Few. And they're like, how do we get it? You can't. Didn't something like that happen with Metallica? Some sort of like underground cassette frenzy thing happened. So when it finally did come out, it was like there was already a ready-made
following, yeah.
Right? Well, that's what happened. So it came out like that. This absolutely organic underground thing by this guy, Drew Fisher, who's still alive, who did sound for all these big, huge bands that all you guys like and have all their records for. I don't, because I'm not a metalhead. And the fan base, right? So when it came out, When Sin Disease finally came out, when Scaterd Few finally came out, there was already a ready-made market, and that's why it blew up. Boom. People had been waiting for it for 5+ years.
Allan, if I may ask, you had changed your name at one juncture. What prompted the name change?
Okay, so it's a little bit of a story. My biological father is Irish Mexican. His last name should be Riley, but since he was illegitimate, his mother gave him her last name, Aguirre, whatever it is, right? But gave him his last name, Riley, as his middle name. So when I was born, he did the same. He gave me Riley as my middle name. My mom said, that's not a middle name, that's a last name. So I have literally just a middle initial of R. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom married, my mom remarried when I was 5 to a Lithuanian guy named Romuald Domkis.
Mm-hmm.
And he raised me as my father. So that's like my dad. So when I was a punk rock kid before going to Central America, before I got saved, I went by the name, I played guitar, and I played by the name Allan Romuald, right? Because I thought it sounded cool. I still think it sounds cool. Anyway, when I came back and started Scaterd Few in 1983, we got a guy named Alan Pellerin to sing. And he was like, a skate punk. And I didn't want 2 Allens in the band. I go, no problem. I'll just go by Romuald. And so I went by Romuald Domkis. And I went by that name for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Even my wife, who only knew me as Allan Aguirre. Oh, and then when I went to Central America, when I left the US, my passport had to go with my birth certificate name, which was Aguirre, right? So she only knew me by that, but even my wife would call me Romuald, because that's the name. I went 100% Romuald Domkis for close to 10 years. I was having a counseling session with my pastor in 92, the same pastor that was my pastor that married us. We had 2 kids when we got married. That married us. He's the one he was my pastor during the whole Scaterd Few thing, right? So Scaterd Few was so controversial that the calls that were coming into the Frontline Records office, if it was about the music, they channeled it to the label, and if it was about my spirituality, they would forward them to my pastor, right? And this is the guy that was helping me with the pot thing. So I'm having a counseling session with him in 92, and he said, hey, so-and-so, a woman at our church, was praying for you the other day, and the Lord told her, I don't know who Romuald is, but I know who Allan is. He's my son. It's been so long, but that's still a very impactful thing for me to relive, because God knows me. Not only does he know me by name, that's not just a Bible scripture. This is a real freaking life thing for me. He told this woman, I don't know who Romuald is, but I know who Allan is. He's my son. And the fact that God knows my name and calls me son, because whether you know it or not, we're all assuming this thing called Christianity. We don't really know what's going on, right? But if God knows my name and calls me son, and I was like, oh my God, I just got outed by God. Because my pastor goes, who's Allan? And I was like, oh my God. And I go, well, my name's Allan. My name's not Romuald. That's a pseudonym that I've been using for 10 years. And I left that office as Allan. And the only person that had the hardest transition from calling me Romuald was Gene Eugene. And he would always go, Romuald, oh, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, that's all right. I gave him a free pass to keep calling me Romuald, because he just had such a remembering that I had switched to, my name. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's that story.
Yeah, the Lord knows us, and it's very special that he he calls us by name. And Alan, I'm kind of closing it out here. I'm looking at the time, but I would like to ask, I don't want to be remiss with Spyglass Blue, going from Scattered Few to Spyglass Blue. I don't know the whole of the story, but
My our manager got us a record deal with Tooth and Nail, finally.
I had saw that, but then nothing
1990
transpired with Tooth and Nail. So what's
19,
going on?
1995. Scattered Few gets a record deal with Tooth and Nail. 94, 95. The late Tim Cook was our manager, him and Gary Nixon. And they finally landed me a deal with Tooth and Nail. It was a very big deal, a big deal.
Mhm.
It was going to be a really good deal. And they wanted Sin Disease too. I go, well, I can do that. That's easy. If you look at the, that's no problem. And so when I went back to a couple of the band members, I'm not going to name who because again, it's not flattering to them. Hey, we got an offer from Tooth and Nail. They want Sin Disease 2. They want a punk rock album. They don't want a jawbone of an ass. They want a punk rock album. And one of the band members said, well, I don't want to do hard music anymore. Why don't we do something like Peter Gabriel? And then I'm like, well, why don't you guys go? And then the other guys, Big Dog, Little Dog. Yeah, I don't want to do hard music. Let's do it, Peter Gabriel, world beat album. I'm like, what the hell? And I go, they'll of course contest this whole story, but whatever. I own the rights. I was there. And I go, well, they don't want that. They don't want a jawbone of an ass. They want a Sin Disease, and we're going to give them a punk rock record. They want a punk rock record. This is a good deal. It's like guaranteed 3 albums, blah, blah, blah. This is going to be awesome. And well, I don't want to do it. So, and then the other guys, yeah, I don't want to do it. All right, well, one of those guys never worked again, and the other guy ended up doing hard music anyway, but with another band. So when I went to Tooth and Nail, and they said, well, this is how it's going to be. They go, well, we want the 3 of you. They wanted the nostalgia of the 3 of us. And I'm like, look at the credits on Sin Disease. I wrote 90% of that record. I will give you a Sin Disease, which is essentially Omega number 5 is like Sin Disease too, if you look at it. And they said no. So they passed because I wasn't able to bring a couple of the other guys along. And so one of the guys ended up getting that deal with another band and playing hard music. And so I'm like, fine, if you're going to be like that, I pivoted, and I'm going to do a thing called Spyglass Blue that I already have right here ready to go. And that's what I did. That manager would move on, would go and end up getting a really nice deal for a band called POD. Like 2 years later.
Wow.
So
yeah, I noticed on the thing that Spyglass Blue, you had done like an EP in '94, so right around the time of Jawbone of an Ass. So yeah, you had a little tinker there. Then with the first album in like '96.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because the worst thing I did to those guys was give them a music career. What can you do?
Alan, regarding the name Spyglass Blue, could you give where did you choose that name from?
So LA, I have a baby or 2 with my girlfriend. It's, I'm doing Signier. It's, you got to remember, between 1985, 1986 to 1990, 10,000 new acts immigrated to Southern California, to Los Angeles, Hollywood to make it. 10,000 a week. These are like legitimate stats. Actors, models, screenwriters, musicians, producers, whatever, directors, entertainment hopefuls, 10,000 a week would come into LA. And so it's a rough, a lot of competition. And we're playing 3-5 times a month, all over all the major clubs, all the underground clubs. We're on K-Rock radio. We're in the magazines. We're being showcased in newspapers and LA Weekly. It's a rough thing. So, and with and ideally you don't have kids and you're not living, you're not trying to, support an apartment. You've made choices in your life to help you become, yeah, I didn't do that. So I had to get side work. And so one of the main side hustles I did was extra work. I could have been an actor before, I could have been a legitimate actor before I was a musician. Because every time I'd show up to do extra work, I'd get bumped up the ranks where I was guaranteed a line, camera, a close-up. And my wife kept going, why don't you just do that? You have more success with acting in movies than you do this rock and roll thing. No, I want to be a rock star. You can't go acting to music. That's never been respected. You can go music to acting, right? Oh my gosh. What a crazy freaking life. This poor girl, I put her through. And so one of the side hustles I did was extra work, acting, to pay bills. And we would unload, and there was what was it called? It was an art supply chain of stores. Aaron's? I don't know. It was like an art supply store. And the pickup truck would show up 4 a.m. on a Wednesday, and we would go and unload it. That's how we could make some extra scratch during the week. And so you got pallets of art supplies and paints and stuff. And so I was doing the paint, so that we called it bowling. One guy would be on one aisle catching the paint that what are they, 5 gallons or whatever. One guy would bowl it down the aisle. The other guy would catch it and stock it. Well, I was bowling this day, and I just happened to look at the name of the paint, and it said Spyglass Blue. And I go, oh, I'm gonna save that for a band name. Went on my merry way. See, that doesn't make sense without the backstory, does it?
Well, right, but that's why we do this, because it's intriguing, And so, Allan, I want to thank you for your time today, and kind of keeping my eye on the time here. But I would like to ask if you could make a brief statement to leave a lasting impression with your friends and your fans. What would you wish to tell them?
I have no idea. I think I've done that already. A lasting impression to my friends and fans. Is that what you said? Oh my gosh. Don't do drugs, stay in school. No, I don't know. What is it, right?
Mr. T, coming back from the
gosh.
Don't do drugs.
Gosh. I don't know. I think I've already said it. I mean, it really is about Jesus. I mean, it just is. I mean, that's why I'm still here doing it. I learned a long time ago, if you actually do what the Bible says, it will change your life, and your life will look differently than those of you that aren't doing what the Bible says, because your lives look different. If you can't fake it, he's designed it so that you can't fake it. You can't fake it. It's you either are or you're not. Because of the fruit of the life. Jesus made it very clear. If you do this correctly, you'll bear good fruit. If you don't do it correctly, you won't bear good fruit. Good fruit isn't based on how much money you have in the bank, stuff like that. And if you're a man, your first main fruits are going to be your marriage and your family, your children, your marriage and your children. And I'll end it with this. So no, that's going to sound too arrogant.
Say what you wish to say, Allan.
Okay, so when I turned 50, I was interviewed, and they said, what would you tell your 25-year-old self? I go, that's easy. When I was 25, I wanted to make it to 50 years of age, still be serving God, have relationship with my children, and still be married to the same girl. That was my goal in life. So what would you tell your 25-year-old self? They asked, and I said, that's easy. I would tell my 25-year-old self, you're right. And they go, well, that's arrogant. I go, no, it's not. Because everything I knew to be true at the age of 25 to make my goal was correct. Because I made my goal. I reached my goal. I have a relationship with my children. I'm married to the same girl. I'm still serving God even more today than ever. And I have an amazing relationship with my grandchildren. My grandkids want to hang out with me. They want to spend the night and do slumber parties when they were 2 or 3 or when they were 2, 3, 4 years old. You have slumber parties with your grandkids. They're 9. The 3 oldest are 9, 11, and 15. Hey, can we spend the night? Can we come over? Can I spend the night? They want to hang out with their grandpa, and they know what's going to happen. They know what that looks like. If they do something stupid, I'm going to call them a dumbass. Don't be stupid. Think about what you're doing. I'm going to tell them about the things of the Lord. Deuteronomy 6, dude. Deuteronomy 6 is the key. This thing called Christianity is generational. He says it. It says so in the word. God says, you, your son, and your son's son. So when you're hanging out, when you're having slumber parties, when you're walking, when whatever, you need to be telling your kids this stuff, so that when they grow up, they're going to go, oh, and they're going to be reminded of it, and they're going to ask you, why do we do what we do? Why do we believe what we believe, other than the people around us? Why don't we believe like them? Well, because we serve the one true God, the only one true God, the Hebrew God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who delivered us from Egypt, your Egypt, with a strong and mighty arm, with spiritual supernatural exploits. And he gave us his Messiah so that you could be forgiven for your sins, so that you could actually have a do-over. But that comes with rules of engagement. You have to serve him. If you will serve me, if you will heed my voice and obey me, you will live. You have to keep the covenant. And Christianity doesn't even know what that is. And so it's not like I haven't been saying this stuff for 40 years. I've been saying the same stinking thing, And I'm on this side of 25 now. Hell, I'm on this side of 50. And I tell my grandkids the same thing I tell my kids. All 3 of my wife and I pinch each other. All 3 of our adult kids serve the Lord, and they're married to people that serve the Lord. And they keep the covenant, and we're helping them raise their children, our grandchildren, in the Lord, and keeping the covenant. That's more success than a freaking Dove Award, a Grammy, a gold, silver, platinum, whatever, in my opinion. And I made choices in the 90s to be where I am today, with my family intact and my faith intact. And I knew that those choices were going to impact my music career negatively. But I fear God. What does it profit me if I gain the world and lose my soul? So
at the end of every show, we always we want to keep the main thing the main thing. We call it our message from home, and it's something that the artist has, a lyric or an album title, a song title. And from the song, Kill the Sarks, and of course, sarks meaning the flesh. And you talked about, what good does it profit me if I gain the whole world and yet lose my soul? And from Kill the Sarks, I chose Matthew 10, verse 39. Whoever finds their life will lose it, said Yeshua. And whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. And so, Allan, I just want to thank you for being our special guest artist today, and for the great music which made an impact and ministers to us. And Jeff and John, thank you for guest hosting today with me. But thank you guys, and we'll wave goodbye to our friends out there who are watching, but stick around for one more moment. Take care, everybody.
Turn